Do you like scary movies?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Flashback 64. I forgot what the podcast was called for 1 second. I was going to say virtual theater, I think.
My god.
We're talking about a movie, so it's more
Is this a video game movie? This is
yeah.
not a video game movie or the story that shapes it.
No, certainly not. We're here with another bonus episode for spooky season.
Ooh.
Which is not where we're at. We're not there at all in the chronology of our show, but we are there in our current life in reality.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been having a good spooky season, haven't we?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm Gooey. I'm with McKenna.
Hi.
And we're talking about Scream today. But yeah, we've been having a good October, good Halloween season. We've watched some different movies. We went to we talked about the Dusk Till Dawn already. I think we did.
Did we talk about it on?
Did we? Well, yeah.
I think we talked about it in the Discord. I don't know if we mentioned it.
Well, let's talk before we talk about the movie. Yeah, let's just talk about some of the stuff we've done then. I think that was our first, because that was at the end of September. That was like our intro to spooky season. We went to the Midway Drive-In in Dixon, Illinois for their Dusk Till Dawn horror movie marathon. Which apparently I was at the first one as well. That was a fun discovery
cool.
in 2007. But they do it almost, I think, yearly. So it's been quite some time since the first one I went to. But what'd you think?
It was fun. I wish I had maybe slept all day, so I could have stayed up all night.
Yeah.
I was definitely dozing off. Honestly, past the first movie. I think the second movie, I think I made it about halfway through before I started dozing off, and then the last two, it was really just
We were too cozy.
very in and out. I mean, we were up literally dusk till dawn.
Yeah.
The first movie, started well after dark. Well, I guess it was rainy, so it was dark pretty early.
And they had some delay issues.
Yeah, there's probably a good 20-minute. They had like an issue with the first movie.
I think we could have comfortably gotten through the second one if not for that. But...
Yeah.
But it's okay. It was a lot of fun still. Definitely would do it again. Maybe now knowing what we know, maybe trying to sleep.
Snooze. Yeah.
I definitely stayed up for pretty much all of it when I was, younger. When I went to it, I was 17 or whatever. So like, it was much easier. And I don't know why I expected I would just be okay, but no, even though we were in the car,
Yeah.
I was comfy, we had pillows and blankets and
I mean, I pulled those out I work overnight shifts, not all of them, but right now twice a week. At the time, once a week, is doing a midnight to 8 a.m. shift.
yeah, but that's different when you're on your feet.
Yeah.
Working, you'll stay
I
awake.
guess I have sort of started dozing off standing up.
Oh, yeah.
It's a struggle.
We're laying down with blankies, though,
Yeah.
Well, we did get to see all of Child's Play, which is one of my favorite horror movies. Did you enjoy that one at least?
Yeah. I hadn't seen it before.
And it was a pretty good lineup, and another one of my favorites, Return of the Living Dead, we saw a good chunk of. I saw most of it, actually.
Yeah, I feel like I got a good chunk of that.
You got some of the good
hazy
bits.
on the ending, but
Yeah. But yeah, overall it was a lot of fun. That was a great start to our season. We've watched a couple horror movies here and there too, and we did some pumpkin carving recently.
Yeah. I've been wanting to watch horror movies that I haven't seen. Every year I want to watch certain horror movies, And I'm like, all right, you can't watch the same ones all. You gotta watch some new ones. I just watched A Quiet Place today. I had never watched it.
Nice. Did you like it?
Yeah, very different. It's definitely not a sit there on your phone movie.
It's not a loud movie.
Yeah, it's definitely not loud.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we've watched some new ones, I think, for us this year. So you're doing a good job.
Yeah. Howling.
The Howling.
That was cool.
That was cool. That's a great movie. Check out my other podcast, Movies That Whip, for that. Actually, I got to put that together. It's already put together. I got to upload it. But that'll be out around the same time here. Yeah, what else? We watched Happy Death Day to You. That was fun.
Yeah. Definitely strays from the horror. It's more...
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're both like horror comedy.
They're both wacky. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Carving pumpkins was fun. I liked your Animal Crossing. My Boo went okay. The dollar store skull candle was pretty sick.
Bleeding skull.
Yeah. And we still got some time left in the month, so hopefully we can slip some more movies in, some more, maybe, I don't know.
Oh, I played speaking of Animal Crossing,
Mm-hmm.
I played a little 15-minute game developed during a Ludum Dare called Harvest Festival 64. It's a Nintendo 64 style Animal Crossing inspired spooky season game.
Mm-hmm.
That's on my YouTube channel, Harvest Gamer McLiz, if you want to check that
Very
out.
Very fitting. Yeah.
Hello?
Hello?
Who is this?
You tell me your name, I'll tell you mine.
I don't think so.
What's that noise?
Popcorn.
You making popcorn?
Well, I'm getting ready to watch a video.
Really? What?
Oh, just some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
You never told me your name.
Why do you want to know my name?
I want to know who I'm looking at.
Why don't we talk about our movie for today, for this episode, this bonus episode? And it is fitting because Scream, it came out in December 1996, and we have of course covered that time period. That was around when Shadows of the Empire came out. That was sort of the last game of the holidays. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't, we've talked about and we've kind of watched along some of the highest grossing movies of the time, which isn't always, it's a good way of getting an idea of what's popular in the culture. And even Scream becomes very popular in the culture, but you end up missing some movies because obviously what is the most popular movie isn't always the best movie that came out at the time, so it's nice. We'll probably do this more if we have some notable entries to come back and touch upon more in depth on some of the popular or not popular or important whatever movies of the time. But Scream, it becomes a powerhouse. So I'm not acting like it's some hidden gem here, obviously. But I don't know. It's interesting, the way it kind of caught on. It kind of. It's not even cult classic status. It's now it's a full blown franchise and everything. But it took a little. It gained momentum.
Still making movies.
Yeah, I think even the original was one of the highest grossing movies. Of the year, not I don't think the top 5 or whatever, but it was really successful and everything. So. From the get-go, it was very popular, but it took, it just took a couple. It's like one of those ones where it released. It's interesting because it released in the holiday period, but right. Just word of mouth and everything kind of really got it up. But are you a Scream fan? You know, there's like a whole series and
I
everything, and
haven't really seen much Scream.
for sure.
I don't even think I maybe had watched this one all the way through on like TV.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I ever sat down and watched it like we just did.
Right.
And
Okay.
I think I've seen bits of the other ones. I've seen one of the Scary movies.
Right. It's a little different.
Yeah.
This movie was originally meant to be called Scary Movie,
Yeah.
which is kind of funny.
They do say Scary Movie a few times.
Yeah, they do. I've seen this specific Scream, the first one, many times. And then I've seen the second and third one probably like once. Like I know they carry on thematically from the other ones. Like I remember they do sort of like the rules thing. You know, they keep that meta thing, and they talk about horror sequels and reboots or whatever it like in the later ones. But I haven't seen like the newer ones, though I hear they're pretty cool. So I'd like to catch up maybe.
Yeah.
And talk about them, but yeah, this movie I've seen a lot of times, but I was obviously happy to revisit it. It had been a minute, so but so many aspects of it are so iconic and memorable to me. And it's kind of cool because it's a movie that even if you've seen it a bunch, I think it's one of those ones where it really holds up upon rewatch, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though it is it sort of has a whodunit mystery vibe to it a little bit. Who's the real killer? It's one of those ones I think actually benefits from when you're rewatching it, like knowing who the killer is and like looking at what they're doing and all the scenes and like kind of recontextualizes their actions a little bit.
I think also having seen more of the movies that it's referencing.
Okay.
I mean,
maybe let's
strongly Halloween, but I think just like the slasher genre in general.
Yeah. So it's definitely. I mean, that's the thing it's known for. I guess. I mean, we talked about some movies we've talked about this year and stuff, but how about like horror movies like the slasher genre? Where is that for you? Like, where are you, I guess, on that in your life? How have you seen these, encountered these?
I feel like I mean, it took me a little while to be into the horror genre, I think, which is weird because I feel like
you're obsessed. Well, you're not really obsessed. You're fairly normal.
Yeah, I think for a while I was just like, I don't know, a lot of it seems bad. But like growing up, I watched a lot of like disaster films, which I think kind of led me into the horror genre. And when I was in,
what's worse than a horror is a disaster.
It's got a lot of the same elements. But then in high school, I had this group of friends, and a lot of times on Fridays after school, we'd go over to someone's house, and we'd mostly watch horror movies. And we watched some good ones, and we watched some bad ones, but I think that's where I really started to get into it. I think the slasher genre in particular has never been like my favorite. Of the horror genres, I kind of like creature features a lot. I like found footage, which is usually very often also a creature feature.
Or like ghosts, or is that
Yeah.
I guess I was thinking like Paranormal Activity.
Yeah. I didn't really like Paranormal Activity.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, whatever.
Okay, but
We're
yeah,
not gonna open up
I
that
didn't
one.
really watch too much slasher
Okay.
unless like someone else suggested it.
Okay. So yeah, because
But
it is mostly lampooning the slasher genre. Unlike Scary Movie, which goes a little bit more broad. But yeah, for me, I guess, yeah, for me, that's kind of like a big entry point for me when I was young into horror movies in general. Like when I was really young, like single digit age, probably around this time. Actually, that's one thing for Scream. It's not something I saw really until later because like literally the year it came out, that's probably when I was like 6 or whatever with like my friends would be showing me stuff. Like we aren't at kind of the same like point that society at large is with like slashers where like we're taking a look back at them. Like for us this is all new, you know what I mean? And it's and like there was no question of like do these still hold up or anything like that, you know. This was like all the ones we were discovering were still like pretty much brand new, and like, you know, it didn't really like the movies didn't feel old or anything like that. So like you have no concept of time or what's coming out. So like Scream wasn't really um on my radar as a kid really until like by the time like you start seeing like ghost face costumes and stuff, which is probably pretty quick, but you know what I mean, like once it really catches on. So like my like first foray into horror movies would be with a there was two of my they're actually I can't remember, like distant cousins of mine, you could say, from in the town I grew up, and both of them were really into horror. And so when I was really young, like I don't think I would really be allowed to like watch it or whatever, but I'd go over their house, or like even on, you know, like TV will play, you know, edited Halloween movies and stuff, which is I forgot. So one of my friends said that's the ideal way to watch some of those. Just the most iconic, classic way to watch some of those is cut up on AMC. But so I'd go over, and you know, Halloween was a big one. My friend who was big into horror movies, his name was Michael, and we'd in like kindergarten we would play Michael Myers, where he would just like slowly walk and chase us around. It was like tag, but you know, you're climbing on the jungle gym as he kind of like fast walks at you. Yeah. But yeah, those were big, like some of my formative memories, and so I was really big into both the slasher and then sort of like zombie type movies. So I was into particularly I was into Halloween and Friday the 13th a lot, because I just sort of like, they're both ones where like when you get into it, it's like there's a whole like wealth of movies about like this particular character that as a kid you find so scary, so you just, and like so interesting that you want to see more of them. You know. And then like, yeah, we both were into like the in like the more like zombie category, like all the Living Dead movies, and then Evil Dead was really big for us, which isn't necessarily zombies. They're like, I don't know, but whatever. They had a similar effect on me as a kid, like really some that like still like freak me out. Some moments I still think of being 6 and watching Evil Dead with my friend Michael, and him. I just will never forget, at one point he's like, oh, I have to go, you know, grab, my mom needs something, and he like leaves the room, and I'm watching the part of Evil Dead where they've got the old lady in the cellar and who they're locked in the cellar with the door popping up, and I'm sitting on his bed, and I like move so my feet aren't like dangling off the bed anymore, and I'm getting so freaked out, so freaking scared. But yeah, so like I don't know when Scream, I think eventually, like, I eventually got it when I got older, but when I was a kid, I was just like, I wasn't really thinking about that stuff, you know, like my friends probably said similar things about those movies, like that they comment on in this, but it was just like, yeah, at the time, we didn't need Scream. So, I mean, so yeah, slashers they're not, you said you've gotten more like kind of into some.
Yeah, well, I mostly like more of the original versions of a lot of these, like original Halloween, original Friday the 13th, Black Christmas.
Black Christmas is cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the original Halloween is certainly like not, you know, it's like ones that come after are more like aware of themselves as being sequels and like having these characters and like there being a genre, whereas like some of those, like, they're influenced, obviously, like Halloween is not without influence or whatever, but it definitely is less like specifically aware of like it being fit into a very specific box, I guess you could say. Friday the 13th, even the first one, I don't think I could say that about. I think they were like, after that, I think that's a more of a, well, that's sort of a cash grab in some ways, but that, you know, they knew their market, I guess you could say, going into it. But yeah, I mean, like I like the slasher genre a lot. I think because it I just like the characters, you know what I mean? Like the idea of like these different characters, like it has always been fun, you know, like but Scream is it actually is kind of different in that regard, because while it is based on slashers, it has like elements of like being a thriller in some ways, or a mystery, and then obviously like Ghostface becomes like a iconic sort of character, but it's always, you know, someone else behind the mask, you know what I mean? So it has like an interesting twist to it on its own. Speaking of the slasher genre, I guess you could say, the movie's directed by Wes Craven, who kind of had his own character in the 80s. He had the Nightmare on Elm Street series that he helped create it, and obviously he's made basically many other iconic horror movies that people know and love, but it's, you know, it's fitting that this movie has him being the one to do it, because like what I think works really well about the movie is that it like knows its subject matter, and it's sort of, as we said, sort of poking fun at it, but it also takes it seriously. You know what I mean? I don't think it like it doesn't act like, well, this is like, this genre is a joke or anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like Wes Craven, I know he was like kind of on the fence about wanting to do the movie, but I think it, you know,
yeah, I think he kind of didn't want to do the more horror genre.
Yeah, I think at the time actually he was working on an adaptation of The Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah,
and that got canceled or something like that. But he had tried to do, he actually has a film, well, his previous one before this was what was it? Was more of a comedy, but then he has like one movie that's like completely outside the realm of horror. I can't remember, but I think there was a time where he was sort of trying to escape, like maybe he had felt like pigeonholed or something like that. But I think it worked out for the better, because I think this movie, along with his other ones, helps kind of cement his legacy even more. And I think the script was written by, I think Kevin Williamson was
Yeah.
the name. He also like had a smart like take on it and everything, and I think you get the idea too that it all comes from like a deep love of the movies. You know what I mean? What do you think about like that tone of the movie, like sort of the more not sarcastic, the more satirical tone? Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It it does it like you said, it does it in a way that it still takes the genre seriously, but it just kind of picks it some of the tropes, the I don't know if we want to get into certain things in the movie yet.
No, yeah, you can, for sure.
But we keep talking about, the first time Sydney encounters Ghostface, and she's like talking about, oh, you don't run up the stairs, you should go out the front door, and she tries to do that. She's not able to.
That's a thing that always is like obviously that happens in plenty of movies, like really ridiculous, like, are you serious? Like, things happen, and I guess everyone's gonna judge that stuff differently, but that's like one thing that I always cringe at sometimes when talking to people about certain movies, where they're like, why didn't they do this? And it's like, okay, like, come, like, give me a break here. Like, what, like, taking away, because like it's some people it's not satisfying to say like, okay, it's a movie, but two, the actual like honest answer is like, in those situations, like you're making a like split second decision, like running for your life, like you're not exactly like plotting out the best route. And I think the movie presents it actually in a similar way, and it's a similar thing that gets me fired up. But the whole Titanic thing with the end of Titanic,
the door thing.
The movie gets a pass, like the screen gets a pass from anyone, because it's pointing this stuff out, and because of that, when it does happen, people notice that they actually made a point that like she tried that and it didn't work. But like, it's got that same thing as like, I have that same feeling when people talk about Titanic. I'm like you just gotta watch, like, it clearly, if you're watching and like you've opened your heart up to this movie, like you'll see and you'll feel like what is being conveyed here, But that's a whole, that's for later.
That's a later.
But I feel that same way with certain horror movies. Like, yes, there are ones where it's like really stupid, but there's other like people really, I think, have gotten not lately. I think people just in general have always done this with horror movies, where like they really like let it go to their head, like thinking like it wouldn't go down like that if I was there,
Yeah, I think this is like a thing just in all genres in general, where people are like, oh, that wouldn't happen in real life, or that's not how, and it's like, it's a movie.
Yeah.
This is not real life.
Yeah. But even beyond, it's like, just like, are you, I don't know. Open your heart, I think.
Suspension of disbelief. That's a phrase for a reason.
Yeah, would you really get killed if you were in a garage door like that? I guess they make the one part look really sharp, but I feel like garage doors are designed so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, garage doors are built with sensors, so like if she was in that, the sensor would have detected that, and it wouldn't have gone up.
Yeah, for sure.
She's like, I don't hear people complain about that.
Oh, so when you mentioned Sydney or whatever, then it got me thinking about the cast. I think the cast is really pretty pitch perfect in this movie. Any standouts? I'll let you have the floor first.
I think they're all really good. Probably, I think both Drew Barrymore and Neve Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
Just having Drew Barrymore only in the opening is
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's awesome.
She's so good, like, and it just the way she starts out so like confident on the phone, and then it's like slowly like sinks in that
what's happening.
Yeah, and it just builds, and
it's cool. Like it's like a good like slice of like what the entire movie is like. It's like that that idea of like the vertical slice.
Yeah,
like you really get that in that opening scene, and you know, we're not the first to point this out, but it's like its own little movie, like short film within the movie. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and it's making you aware of like these people know of the existence of scary movies.
Yeah, which only makes sense, you know.
Yeah.
That was like that's something that sometimes it doesn't always bother me, but you do wonder that watching certain movies, like, okay, but do they know what like a zombie is?
People never know what zombies are.
Yeah.
They haven't started making zombie fiction where people are aware of zombies.
Well, no, because we watched Return of the Living Dead.
Well,
they were like, that movie was real. Night of the Living Dead was real.
Yeah.
that was the first meta, you know.
Yeah.
But no. Yeah, that
can't even call them zombies.
Walkers or something. Well, that was something that was awesome in The Howling. Which we discussed over on Movies That Whip, that like they even had it had a similar satirical tone. It didn't go as far like as Scream did, but I think for its time was really like pushing for something there. Not for its time, but at its time it was like kind of pushing the boundaries there, and while still taking it seriously. And in that you had sort of a character who you know, like they talk about werewolves and stuff like that, and they maybe not, I don't know if they talk about like the genre of movies so much, but they've got like, you know, a shop, like a curiosity shop that sells silver bullets and all that stuff. So that's pretty cool, and they referenced that movie in Scream, which was cool.
Yeah,
they reference a lot of movies in Scream, obviously, but that one was cool because I felt like it shared sort of a kindred spirit with. And then I mean, this also comes after like Wes Craven's last like big like horror outing was New Nightmare, which was like a Freddy movie that also kind of got a little bit meta. So like he didn't write the script, but like if it's like a good fusion, you know, into that genre. But another big, we can go back to the cast, but while we're on it, I was thinking the strongest, honestly, to me, thematic takeaway or like movie that sort of like it centers itself around is Halloween. Which is very fitting, I think, because like while there's other slasher movies that came before and stuff, like a lot of like the language of slasher movies are really informed by the first Halloween movie. So I think like of all the movies to sort of take the most inspiration from, it would be that one. What did you think about like the, you know, did you feel like the ties to that one were the most strong?
Probably I mean, it's the most obvious to me. I mean, my slasher, you know, one move slashers I've seen is kind of limited, so
yeah,
that's plus they're like playing clips from it.
They're playing the clips.
Movie.
Just like the white mask. I mean, there's a lot of mask killers, but
yeah,
I think I feel like the suburban setting too.
Yeah, Michael Myers is, to me, a little more. Well, he's more mysterious and intimidating.
Yeah,
just because he has this like silent like slow,
yeah.
threatening vibe where Ghostface is much more forward and
right,
direct.
Yeah. Certainly the characters differ a lot.
Yeah.
Though
and fast. Well, I think one of the big things is seeing Ghostface get so beat up a lot of the time.
Well, because then it makes sense.
That does become a much later thing for Michael Myers, but
yeah. Well, yes, definitely. But like Michael Myers always like they always carry him off as sort of this cold, ever moving
like,
force.
Inhuman.
Ghostface does read in this movie, and that's another case of when you're rewatching it being like, oh yeah, that's amazing. Is like he's like a bumbling teen, you know. He's like,
yeah,
and they're kind of idiots, you know. I mean, not totally. There's the scheme they're pulling is somewhat elaborate, but it's like, yeah, they're just like idiot teens, I guess, going on a rampage. But I think like the suburban setting overall, like, and it's certainly more grounded compared, like, and Halloween definitely goes pretty off the rails in those movies, but like, you know, just compared that to like Friday the 13th or something like that, it feels like, yeah, it's kind of more in that specific realm. And I think part of the Ghostface character, like the teens that embody him in the movie, they clearly, I feel like they seem the most inspired by him too, just in that like they really take a lot of joy. I don't know if Michael Myers takes joy in it, but like the idea of stalking from afar, which is not something you don't get that with Jason Voorhees, for example. He does not stalk you. He just walks up to you or teleports to you later on and is like very forthcoming about his murder. Or like Freddy likes to play these elaborate games in your dreams. Whereas like, yeah, Michael Myers, like he likes to hide behind the bush in the laundry. You know, Ghostface is doing it in a more modern way, but you know, and he's on the phone and stuff, but
yeah, I guess in that way, kind of Freddy, you know, they're both speaking to their victims in a, you know, different ways.
But they have
this
like
taunting
humor
thing, yeah.
Like sort of, yeah, like they're, yeah. So there, I guess there's maybe a few, and obviously you'll see the, you know, Wes Craven influence in the movie too. I mean, obviously there's that, but it's just interesting. He's like slightly more grounded film. I mean, not that he hasn't made other films that are more grounded, but you know, compared to the other big horror franchise, you know, there's that. The Ghostface character too. Well, so we can go back to the cast and talk about Skeet and Matthew, Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard, who I think are great in this. I think of all like the people, just like actors that I mean, maybe it's just because I like not in as much stuff that I've like watched throughout the years, but like Skeet Ulrich isn't really like one of my personal favorites, but in this movie I think he's pretty spot on. I think someone else might have actually been considered for his role. Matthew Lillard too.
I think I saw a few people,
but I think they went the right way. Like we watched, they even had like I think it was did the screen test. He has good.
Was Joaquin Phoenix was was considered for someone.
Oh, okay.
That.
Oh, Skeet Ulrich. They thought they were going to go with Vince Vaughn, who was I don't even know what he would have been in at the time actually, but he had a good chemistry with Neve Campbell in the movie.
Yeah.
They were in The Craft together, so they like knew each other and stuff too. But it's cool, like in general, like the whole cast all around, I guess they're kind of like all rising stars or somewhat like Drew Barrymore had been in movies for a while.
She's the biggest.
Well, Courtney Cox maybe.
Yeah.
Like Friends
Right.
been popping off.
Yeah.
But I guess she's like a little like compared to the teenager cast are like like it's a really well pitched cast, but yeah, those two guys, him and Matthew Lillard, I think is awesome in this too. Uh
they're kind of like opposite personalities, and you know, the there's just
Loomis
one little
is
like moody,
yeah,
very I feel like he never, at least for me, the air of suspicion around him never totally dissipates.
Well, yeah, it's hard for me to say now too.
Yeah.
But like one thing that really stood out in the way of like the rewatching it and kind of taking things in was there's a lot of scenes where Matthew Lillard's character is really like hyped on what's going on. He thinks it's all funny. You know what I mean? And he's joking about Drew Barrymore's death and everything. And there's a lot of times where Billy Loomis has to tell him to like chill out, because it's like clear, because you can read it both ways. Like clearly he's like offending everyone else, but watching it now you're like, man, he's like trying to
just like,
don't
chill,
blow
dude,
it,
man.
So
blow our cover.
And I think it helped to like, I liked that like it ended up being fitting that these characters who are like completely obsessed with these movies, like to where they're like, when they're gonna do this, they're like trying to like kind of follow the tropes themselves, you know. I thought that was really cool. Like they were like pretty obsessive. I know like that could almost be for a lot of people be something like that freaks people out at the time, because like parents are always worried like, oh, their kids being into horror movies is going to turn them into a killer. Which is then why I like they have the Jamie Kennedy character, who is actually the most obsessed with them all.
Yeah.
Like he's the real dork, and it sort of like centers it back on like he's not the hero at all, but like that it's like, well, yeah, he's just like the lovable horror fan, you know what I mean? And I think even they kind of reference it like when they sort of reveal their plan, you know, like they sort of reference, you know, like watching the movie, or like they even say like, what's the motive? And they're like, they have one, but they're like, oh, it's even better if we don't, you know. But yeah, I like that. Like that's another thing that makes all the references work. Like it has a specific like story tie to it, you know. It's not just like, hey, remember this horror movie, you know? Though I mean they do that pretty well. There's like all kinds of Easter eggs and things like that. We talked about all the references to the movies. There's I actually really liked like when they're watching when Jamie Kennedy's watching Halloween. Jamie Kennedy, the actor, is watching Halloween, and he's talking to Jamie Lee Curtis, the actress in Halloween, going, Jamie, look out, he's behind you. And there's literally Ghostface behind him.
Yeah.
That's really fun. What you have some favorite Easter eggs?
Well, there's the Wes Craven,
the cameo.
Yeah, janitor. I
spotted that. Well, we all spotted the Freddy outfit, but I was like, that's Wes Craven. I was
like, oh, all right.
I can't think of any more off the top of my head, but those obviously are the big standouts.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of like smaller ones for sure. And like they actually, like, horror movies in general already do this, but like naming the characters or like streets or whatever, high schools, after other characters or directors. You know, you have Billy Loomis, who, you know, has obviously a Halloween connection, but
they do have the Ghostface giving Drew Barrymore's character like trivia questions at the beginning.
Yeah.
I really like, she gets one wrong. She gets the Friday the 13th one wrong.
Yeah. Which is like, that was
funny.
good. That's what people would get wrong, for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe not at this point. It's so like, now it's so much in the...
Yeah.
But even still...
really, like, for most of the series, that is the right, Jason is the right answer.
Yeah. Not the first one.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I was familiar with the series before I ever watched the first one, so I was just associated it with Jason, and then I remember seeing the first one for the first time and being like, that's not Jason.
Yeah. That's like the strongest connection to, like, thematically that I felt this movie had, which was just like the idea of, in the original Friday the 13th, like, they treat it like it's Jason, like but you never see, like, Pamela Voorhees' perspective, so it doesn't have like necessarily a whodunit vibe. It's just more of like, it's creepy because you don't really see the killer, you just see the deaths, but then it turns out it's someone else. So there is some like strong thematic ties to that as well, I think, too, just sort of the like, who is the killer. And I liked what you said too about Billy Loomis, like, never really loses the suspicion in this. And I think, like, the movie, I think this is a good choice by the movie. It like leans into it, like, even after they've given him alibis and things like that, he shows up, they still make him look creepy as fuck. And they're still they'll play like music or something, like, or he'll jump scare and look creepy as hell. And I feel like the movie's not trying to necessarily hide it. I think it's trying to present a lot of people as potential killers, but like with them, it doesn't necessarily lay off the gas on him, to like red herring you.
Yeah, I think it feels like it tries to give you evidence that would prove him innocent while still being like,
but he's really weird, right? That's like,
yeah, it's like, okay, like, he runs in to Sydney's house, like right as Ghostface is attacking. Like, Ghostface disappears, and then there he is, and you're like, you're thinking like, could he have gotten around that fast? Like, that was way too fast.
Yeah.
But
it gets a little elaborate, kind of goofy, like, with the fake murder.
Sydney is convinced that it's him, even though she just saw Ghostface at her door.
Yeah, I mean, she's not fully convinced, though, right? Like, he's mad.
Well,
he's mad at her that she's like freaked out at all. Which is like, that's come on.
I did catch the phone call thing pretty early. I'm like, doesn't he get a phone call from jail? Like, that could have been him easily.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. But
it could have been either one.
That's what made to the scene where he gets killed, quote unquote, later. It's like really funny when you watch it now and you're like, yeah, they're clearly acting. Like, this is clearly ridiculous the way they're doing it. It's done so it's subtle, it's not like over the top, but when you're watching it, like, you can tell the actors are like playing it that way, that their characters know that it's fake, or like that they're staging this. I thought that was really well done. Let's see, who else in the cat? We should kind of hit upon everyone. We talked about the Drew Barrymore opening is cool. The one other thing I wanted to say was that I like then it kicks in to like the rest of the movie. Like, this is a character everyone knows. Like, boom! It, like we talked about, it's a tone setter, but it flows into the rest of the movie really well. And I think overall the movie has like a nice pace of like just like getting into it, getting going. That's really cool. We talked about Jamie Kennedy and the rules. That's like kind of that's like the big, I think the most iconic thing the movie is known for is like him kind of laying out the rules and the tropes of horror movies, which again, like this is something I feel like they are walking a line here. This type of thing in this sort of movie could be grating. I think it could be annoying, but like it's played pitch perfect. You know what I mean? And I think you know, it's, I mean, it's saying I think it does a good job of conveying like friends talking to each other, you know, like normal teens, like talking to each other about like the tropes of horror movies. So it's like kind of relatable, you know what I mean? Like when I did see it, like really for the first time, I was probably a preteen, and so it felt cool. Like, oh, cool! Like these cool kids are like horror movies, or like, you know, I kind of thought the Jamie Kennedy character was cool, you know what I mean? Even though he's clearly a dork, you know. But I think it conveys that well of like, you know, capturing that type of guy at that age. And we'll probably talk about the other movies at some point. But the rules is a trope in these movies that come back of like them sort of, you know, in this one, it's like, it is more, well, actually it does serve a thematic purpose. I was going to say that it's more of just general horror commentary, but the biggest thematic purpose it touches upon is the idea of like virginity or whatever, of like this idea of like, oh, the virgin survives trope, where they have Neve Campbell's character like clearly lose her virginity in the movie, but still like survive, you know. So they're doing a little twist on that. So there is something going on there. It's not just like, don't say I'll be right back or whatever, you know.
Yeah. And that does happen with Matthew Lillard's character. He's the one, right? He's the one who's, when they're going over the rules,
yes,
he's like, oh, I'm gonna leave.
Yeah, again, he's like goofing.
Yeah.
You know? He leaves and to go.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that the last time you see him?
Is
like
it?
Before?
I don't remember. Yeah, I remember I was looking out for that. But yeah.
I don't remember if you see him again before he comes like back.
But yeah, so that sort of was a cool element of it. I think just in general, like, well, I think the cast was overall really cool. Like you had, like, sort of you had sort of like these guys who were weird, but then like I feel like the actual main characters were really like the girls in this, and it wasn't like you know, it was trying to sort of somewhat subvert the idea of like this trope of like the virgin final girl or whatever that, you know, wasn't always in, like they attribute it to Halloween, but I feel like that goes on to be more overt in successive like sequels to those series and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like I
feel like Friday the 13th, it's pretty the original, it's pretty strong.
Yeah,
I think more than once the kills happen like right after characters are having sex.
Yeah, like I definitely don't want to say like it's something absent of Halloween, but I think Halloween is actually just trying to be an honest portrayal of teenagers, and, you know, showing that, yeah, some of them, like even Jamie Lee Curtis smokes in the movie. I believe, you know, it's like, you know, they smoke, they drink or whatever. Some have sex. It's not. I don't think it's, you watch it and you're like, they're being like karmically punished or whatever. And maybe even I don't know if it's 100% the intention of Friday the 13th. I think the big thing is that it's like, this is a movie for teenagers. Like, so let's have some racy scenes of teenagers.
Well, isn't the concept like Jason died because the teens were off not paying attention? Yeah, no, I'm not trying to say it's not a strong theme in the movie, but I think, you know, more so than anything, it's like, yeah, I'm not trying. I mean, those movies are definitely pretty. They are
solidly in that camp. But I think it almost at first comes from the idea of like, well, we just want to show, you know, young people getting naked and having sex because it's a movie for teens, you know. It's like you go see some murders, you see some boobs or whatever, you know. But then that does have sort of the after effect of that. But I think Scream, that's another thing that just makes me think of Halloween though, is I feel like in both those movies it is more, to me, like trying to present a more grounded, like real portrayal of like real young women, you know, as opposed to like just like, I don't know, bimbos or something, you know, that some of those movies really lean into.
Yeah.
Like even the characters in that would like be more like coded as that in another movie are like treated fairly honestly, I guess you could say, you know. They're not just tropes or archetypes necessarily, you know. There's one other like there's a couple suspects, like they mention the dad is a red herring, he says, which is true. But there's one moment we haven't talked about the characters of played by David Arquette and Courtney Cox, who are both really good in this, and they had chemistry.
Yeah, I guess so. You know,
they got married.
Have some chemistry to get married, right?
Yeah, then they split up, but but there is a scene where they even hint at that it might be David Arquette, or it's just like a really creepy like moment where he's like, "You want to come take a walk with me?" But I liked Courtney Cox's character a lot.
Yeah.
They were leaning into that sort of like somewhat of a commentary too of like the state of journalism at the time, tabloid media somewhat. But yet, and she's like
the like more she has more journalistic integrity than the other journalists that they portray.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Some of them are really
fun fact. There's a Linda Blair is makes an appearance in this. She's, I think the when they're all coming to school after like the day after, I guess, Drew Barrymore's character is murdered, and they're, you know, they've got journalists stationed at the
this
school.
Is one of the best lines, I think. What does she say to her?
She says something like we deserve to know.
Yeah, first she says like, how does it feel to be almost like slaughtered to pieces or something?
Oh, this is after Sydney gets attacked.
That's I think what she has, something along those lines. Yeah. Something like just such a like a no tact to the question, just really gnarly. And they're like, and she's like, the people deserve to know.
Yeah. I'm like, okay.
There's a lot of good like mini jokes in the movie like that. That's cool. I didn't recognize that cameo. That's cool. But I like Courtney Cox. Her character is another one. Like she's I was gonna say self-described, but described by Courtney Cox even as being like a bitch.
Yeah. But
like they also still treat her character like a real character. You know what I mean? She's not. She isn't. I mean, it's good because she like. It's clearly what they're going for is like, at the end she kind of gets her own, you know, little ending. It's just a great ensemble movie all around because of stuff like that. But I think that was cool that they definitely gave her like there was sort of like a negative aspect to her character where she's not as bad as some of those other journalists, but definitely like
she's still going for like, oh, I need my numbers.
Yeah, she's desperate a little bit. Yeah, she's kind of. I mean, they're planting a camera at a party full of teens, you know. But I liked her. I liked her a lot, and I liked David Arquette's character is sort of like I actually, what really stands out to me is like I always remember, maybe because I watched it more as a kid, but the like scary movie version of him is like it's pretty horrible actually when I think about it.
Yeah, I remember.
But that I always stuck with me more because I think I probably watched those a ton more when I was a kid, when I was like 10, before like really getting into this, you know what I mean? So like I always had that reverse comparison because the characters map 1-to-1 a little bit better. But anyway, when you actually watch this, like I think he's a really good character. Like the dynamic between him and like his sister and her friends, I think is kind of cute, I guess, you know. He's just like an idiot who's trying his best, you know.
Yeah.
Much like his character in Ready to Rumble.
Yeah.
He's just a doofus cop, I guess, or wannabe cop.
Well,
in this
in this, yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's sort of the main cast. I mean, Ghostface is a character on its own in a way. We talked about how I think, you know, when you watch it now, like, yeah, you like they do a good job because they have the original voice actor, you know, doing a voice or whatever, and he does a fantastic job. But I think what they really do a really good job is actually, like, when you watch it, it's like, oh, like it definitely is believable that it would have been those guys, like on the other end of that phone with the voice changer. You know what I mean? You're like, that would have been them. And I'm interested how that'll be like if we rewatch the sequels, because then like, and I guess that will tie into like these movies, like other genres like the slasher genre becoming more aware of themselves. Like you'll now have characters stepping into the role, aware of what sort of actions they're supposed to perform, if that makes any sense. Like there will be sort of, I think there's sort of a meta element to that even too, like the performance of the killer. So I don't want to jump too far ahead, but that's just something I was left thinking about by the end of this. But yeah, I mean that's kind of the main cast and stuff, and we sort of the plot, we don't really, you've seen it. If you've seen it, you know what it is. We've sort of described it, but is there anything else you really like you want to hit on about the movie before we like really go? Any other thoughts yet?
Yeah, I guess we haven't really like talked about the Sydney's mother.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and how that's kind of a back it becomes more of a forefront thing, but
and that goes into like that whole
go tie in with Courtney Cox's character.
Yes,
that's like the big tie-in here.
Well, it ties everything together because it also hits upon sort of the element of like being not a virgin but a whore is sort of the implication there. You know, like there's, the characters who hold what she's done against her. You know what I mean? She was like sleeping with the father of Loomis.
Yeah.
Which is why his mother ran off or whatever. Something like that. So it does tie into that a little bit of like those characters are so obsessed with that fact. Obviously, like, much like the genre is, as Jamie Kennedy explains. So that's cool. But then, yeah, it's like Courtney Cox's character also ties into it. And she's sort of, that's another thing is like, she's sort of on the right. Her heart's somewhat in the right place of that. Like, Courtney Cox believes that she is getting to like the truth of the story, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, because you've got this guy, the Cotton, what's the rest
Liev
of
Schreiber
yeah, who who's briefly shown
in a
getting into a
photograph
car,
or a video footage.
yeah, no lines.
Yeah,
it seems like he's been jailed sort of under circumstantial evidence.
he was framed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's not so... Courtney Cox's character is not so sure.
Mm-hmm.
She's pretty convinced, actually, that he's not the killer.
Yeah. And she, like, I think she genuinely believes that, whether, like, she's chasing that for, you know, like, obviously her career, but also, like, to get to the truth. You know, there's a sort of a thin line there. I guess they're walking as well.
Mm-hmm. And she kind of sows this thing. Sydney's convinced that Cotton did kill her mother, but then suddenly she's not so sure. She's like, she saw a man, but maybe it wasn't him. Maybe she just allowed herself to be convinced that it was because you know, she was upset that
It's the
they had
easiest
this
answer.
relationship going on that messed with their family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like, again, with like the virginal, or like the chaste aspect of it, of like, oh, like, you know, maybe that's like that, like maybe them like judging her and thinking like, yeah, that's like she got what she deserved almost,
Mm-hmm.
type situation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not Sydney thinking that, but you know, that's at least how it's somewhat portrayed.
I mean, it definitely feels like she's internalized this because
Mm-hmm.
she, you know, has the
That's right,
intimacy problems back to.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's all
yeah.
comes full circle. Yeah. Yeah. It's really like it is. The script is really clever. I think like it, you know, like it ties everything together really nicely.
Mm-hmm.
It walks the line of being like, it's not full blown parody, but it's satirical.
Mm-hmm.
It does that really well without like I feel like you could easily fall off a cliff with that. But overall, I think I don't know. Yeah, I think it's really smart. I'm excited to hopefully talk about more in the future, because I think the other ones, even if we don't talk about them, at least watch them when they come around, because I think the other ones are those were more successful initially. I think at least the second one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when it, like, eventually this, I mean, we'll get to it later, but you know, I mean, like, the genre itself, like, for why, like, an audience, like, eventually this thing that's kind of new and exciting and commenting on it isn't going to be new and exciting anymore, which I think they even addressed in the movie. I think probably all the movies will be good. That's what from what I remember. And I think because they're all, I believe, at least the second and third, maintain that self-aware aspect and still walk that fine line, without like falling off the cliff, you know, jumping the shark, you know. But I think still even wider, like the wider audience was probably grew somewhat tired of that. But that's just me calling it. I don't know for sure.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a scary movie. Number one, you can never have sex. Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
Get another beer, you want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back.
It's hard to describe certain things because it's just like people have explained why certain things about this movie are good a million times.
Mm-hmm.
So you know why the opening's good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's certainly like it's cool when you watch one, like a movie like this, and you're like, yeah, everyone's fucking right. Even a movie like I've seen a million times, you rewatch it and you're like, Yep. Nope. They definitely still killing it for sure. I wasn't wrong. But yeah, classic, iconic movie. Excited to do more. We're gonna, hopefully hit on more. In the future, we're gonna broaden our horizons too for spooky movies.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, we're just getting off the ground. Hopefully everyone listening enjoyed our foray into the horror movie genre. We'll definitely cover some more in the future.
Mm-hmm. Got some ones I'm excited about.
McKenna has been really planning some stuff. That's gonna be good. And we're gonna definitely be. I don't want to reveal it yet because it'll be more fun, sort of as a surprise. But we've got some good stuff in the pipeline. Eventually, that's coming on. That's a project in the works. It's gonna be pretty cool, I think. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, you can go, if you want to support us, obviously, you can go to our Etsy, buy some merch, go to our Patreon, send us $1 just to support us. We're on all the social media, not all, but we're on Twitter,
a lot of them,
Blue Sky, Instagram, Flashback 64. Just, you can look us up on your platform of choice. Like and subscribe, comment, 5-star review, email. Just reach out and come in our Discord. That's really the best place to come talk to us. We'll definitely be talking about this movie, and we post. I usually share. We mostly just watch them for ourselves, but I share pretty much every movie we're watching as we go through the timeline. So if you just want to come and talk about 90s movies, even if you don't care about N64 that much, like, there's a space for that.
Talking about anything 90s.
Anything.
Or early
2000s. Or if you want to talk about something
or
from
whatever.
2015.
Send us a pic of what you made for dinner.
We got dinner pics. Yeah. It's a cool spot, and we're playing N64 games. We have game night every month. It's a great place to be.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Love comes down upon us and it flows like water, burning with the hope of inside feathered books, the colors of a bright elation stone.